Welcome, everyone. My name is May. I'm a program manager in the SQL BI team. I think I have the longest last name. Is anyone disagreeing with me? No. I have been with Microsoft for 15 years. I spent most of the time in business applications in Dynamics. And the last 3 years, I have been with the BI team. So there is a little bit about me. This slide, I put it here, people who might have attended the SQL BI overview session earlier today might have seen this. This is just to set the context and provide continuity, right? The key point here is there are 3 waves or categories of BI that we are talking about. On the far right is the technical BI, where a BI professional or a report developer using a professional tools create content mainly for the consumption by others. Then in the middle is the self-service BI, where an analyst or a power user who may not be too technical, who is not a programmer, but who is good with the numbers and the domain, creates the content mainly for himself or for his team. That we call it as the self-service BI. Then on the far left is the end user BI, where anyone in the organization can go consume a SaaS service and get value immediately. The main point here is all 3 are still relevant, and each one of them feed other. So no one can be successful as a silo by its own. It needs the support of other categories of BI. And Microsoft is investing in all the 3. And Microsoft is probably the only one company that has investments across this entire BI portfolio. So before I go further, I realized this is the first session after lunch. So maybe a good quick exercise might help go a long way. I see sad faces already. I'm not going to ask you to stand up and stretch and all. So it's going to be a quick pulse, raise your hand type exercise. So how many of you are using SQL Server reporting services? Hold on, I need to take a picture. Seriously, I need to show this to the team. Let me enter the passwords. Wait. Okay, good. Almost the entire room is using reporting services. We have few more. How about analysis services, multidimensional? Okay. Again, the same pattern. How about tabular models? Okay. How about BI in SharePoint environment? Okay, it's a lot more than what I expected. Data Zen. Okay, a couple of them. I know if I ask you to raise your hand one more time, the session rating is going to go down. But I can't resist asking this question. How many of you are also using BI product from other vendors besides Microsoft? Okay. So our goal is very simple. The next time when I meet you and ask you these first 5 questions, I want the hands to go up. And the last question, nobody should raise their hand. Right? Because all of you are our customers, so we should be able to fulfill your entire BI need. Okay. So for SQL Server BI, there are 6 major investment areas that we are looking at. Number 1 is the mobile BI. Second, modern reports. Third, hybrid BI. Fourth is enhanced analysis. Fifth is self-service BI. And sixth is the rich tools. Let's go with mobile BI. Mobile BI, we know, is a key gap that we had for quite some time for on-premise customers. And we are finally super happy to fill this gap with the acquisition of Data Zen. I'm sure you might have seen the Data Zen demos in the keynote, in the foundation keynote, as well as the BI overview. We will go a little bit more detail here, because mobile BI is very critical to us. So nearly half this session is dedicated mainly for mobile BI. So what is Data Zen? Data Zen, number 1, is a mobile app for SQL Server. This is mainly for on-premise deployments. When we had mobile apps for the cloud, people loved it, but they really want the mobile application work against their on-prem server, and DataZen is the answer to those questions. Second thing, it is optimized for SQL Server. Even though it could connect to other servers and files, we are making it work better, seamless with SQL Server and analysis services. It has rich, beautiful, stunning visualizations, which is very interactive. And it is available in all mobile platforms, all popular iOS, Android, Windows, browser. It is available everywhere. Third and most important point is if you are a SQL Server Enterprise Edition customer with software assurance, then this comes at no extra cost. I think only companies like Microsoft can do this. I'm sure like every one of you is going to love, because you might have been looking at other competitive products to fill this gap. Now you don't have to pay anything extra. It is available as part of the SQL Server family in the existing licensing that you have. How do I get started with DataZen? Right? First, I need to create the dashboard, and for that, Publisher is the app that you need to use. Publisher is highly optimized for touch-based authoring, so you don't need any rich tools or specific environment to go create. Anybody can use their mobile device of any size and build quickly the dashboard. The demo here would really prove this point. It can connect to you. There is also a server piece involved for you to connect to other data sources, manage your security, refresh the data and stuff. And finally, once you create the dashboard connecting to the server, it is very easy to publish it for others to consume. So it is 3 quick steps. Create using a touch-optimized device, connect to a DataZen server, which in turn can connect to SQL Server and other data sources, and publish it for others to consume. So this is a quick, very high-level architecture of DataZen. I talked about the Publisher app. This is a Windows 8 store app today. That is what you use to create. On the viewer, we have viewer apps available natively in all mobile platforms, iOS, Android, Windows Store, Windows Phone Store, as well as browser. It is not just for mobile apps. You could open up any modern browser and directly access the content. In the middle is the DataZen server. It has 3 core components. The first thing is what we are calling it as the core services, which does all the heavy plumbing underneath the cover in terms of authentication, security, talking to Active Directory, managing the hubs, the container, in terms of listening to the client devices, serving the content. That is a service for, that is a part of the core service. Second is the data acquisition service. This is the one that connects to the different data sources and manages the refreshing of the data. You could schedule how often you want to get the data, or do you want the data to be real time, and the data acquisition service provides these capabilities. And finally, the web applications. This is the one that serves the content when you open up a browser and view the dashboard. And web application also provides the web experience for administrator in terms of consoles and managements. DataZen easily integrates with Active Directory as well as ADFS, so you could allow external users, as long as you have the Active Directory federation set up, to consume the content in a secure manner. And also, DataZen supports connecting to different types of data sources. We are going to demonstrate SQL Server here, but you could also connect to any analysis services cube, Excel as a file, and many other different sources as well. So with this, I'm going to call Dean to come and give a quick demo.
Thank you, mate. Mic is on? Great. Yeah. All right, so just to, I'm very pleased to be here and to give you a little deeper insight into DataZen. Just to build a little bit on what May had said. So DataZen is an on-premise BI app designed from the ground up to be easy to use and to rapidly deploy rich content to any device, any platform, any form factor in connected and offline modes. In addition to integration with Active Directory, comes with a whole bunch of other robust functionality for enterprise environments, supports ADFS, extensive encryption, and so on. So it's really, really a powerful app for the
enterprise class
application. So the next 15, 20 minutes or so, I will enter my password, excuse me. I will give you a bit of a deeper dive into DataZen, both on the client side and a bit on the server side where a lot of the heavy lifting takes place. Okay, this is the DataZen opening screen. You can see that we have two types of content here. We have KPI tiles and we have rich dashboards. The KPI tiles are really, really effective. They're a really effective way to get a pulse, a snapshot of the business that you're managing. Each tile contains one metric. You can put a target. You can color code the performance of that target. And you can put a slight trend indicator to give you an idea of what's happening. If I click on a particular tile, I can participate in a conversation with other people. I can also see what are my related dashboards if I want to maybe drill down further and investigate, analyze what's happening with that particular KPI. And of course, the people on this conversation are authorized to be there. In some cases, in addition to the conversation and related dashboards, we have sub-KPIs. So you can even drill down at this level to see some other metrics very quickly. Now, the other content type, of course, are the dashboards that we built. I'll show you a few of them just to give you an idea of the kinds of visualization quality. By the way, we're not a template-based tool, so we don't give you 5 or 10 templates to say make your data fit. This is a designer, which I'll show you in a minute, so you can design pretty much any reasonable dashboard that exists. So you can see some of the navigation options that we have. I'll just give you a few. We support custom shape files, so not just geography. You can create your own shape files and sort of see how the data works. Let me pick some other ones. Tree maps, heat maps. You can see different abilities to filter these dashboards. Let me pick one that's maybe a little busier in case you want to do that. Here we have time selection capability. I can also filter my data as required. And it all looks very nice. I won't go through all of them, but this gives you an idea of the kinds of dashboards that you can build. Something else to show you, which is pretty powerful. So if I start with total sales, I may want to investigate this further, so I'll click on this related dashboard that's there. And now I have a dashboard. Still high level. I can see some other metrics, can examine what's happening. Now, if you notice, a couple of these visualizations have a little icon in the upper right-hand corner. When you see that, that means that visualization is enabled for touch. So if I click on this, I now drill through. It's touch enabled for drill through. I can drill through to another dashboard where I can do some more analysis, perhaps drill down into some time data, see what's happening. And then my gauge here again is also enabled for drill through. So if I touch this, I now go to a third screen, more detailed, and notice that the time was passed in, what I selected on the previous dashboard. That's because DataZen supports contextual parameter-driven drill throughs to any other DataZen dashboard or any URL. So if you have SSRS reports or ERP modules that can be launched with this, you can pass parameters and launch them from a DataZen dashboard. So it's pretty powerful stuff. Okay. So let me take you into Designer and show you how you can build these dashboards. Again, easy to use. You just simply activate the menu, you hit Create, and you may have seen this in some of the other demos. You can choose an existing dashboard as a template, or you can start from an empty design surface. So on my left, I have all the gallery elements that I can drag onto my surface. And on my surface, you notice it's kind of a coarse grid. And that's because even if I drag something in the smallest sort of area, it looks meaningful. And that's why it's very difficult to create unattractive dashboards with DataZen. Plus, this is a smart tool. So as you extend it, it actually optimizes what looks best in the space that you have. So building a dashboard layout, and by the way, I'm doing everything with my hands here, my finger, no mouse, it's all touch enabled, is as easy as this. Let's do that. Let me throw a map in there. Do this. Okay, there's my layout. I can run it anytime because DataZen generates sample data, simulated data, anytime I build a dashboard, so I can always see what it looks like before I connect to real data. And if you like it, then you can import your data, architect your data to fit this particular layout.
I could see like people are stunning. Since the visuals are stunning, they are looking at it. They don't want to take their eyes out, even to clap.
Thank you, May.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So you can see the quality and sort of the effectiveness of building a particular dashboard. So if I go back, I'll show you a few other things. So this is obviously just the default particular color layout. I can here select. We have professionally crafted palettes, like 40 of them, including some backgrounds that you can choose to meet a particular color scheme that you like. We also support custom branding. And there's actually a brand here. If I click on it, this is the Fabricam brand that you may have seen in other demos. So if I select this, the entire application is now branded for Fabricam. Logos, colors, every pixel, every area is branded. So you can do this for yourself or, in fact, your customers. Let me go back to the default. Oh, a different one. Default. Now, a very, very cool feature is this. So I'm working with a master layout here. I can just create the master layout, and DataZen will do its best to scale it to any real estate that you access DataZen. However, I can very quickly create other layouts, like the phone layout. So it says, listen, I won't do anything automatically. I want you, the human, to tell me what's important on a smaller real estate. And with this dashboard, you can see the elements from the master layout. I'm pretty sure I can probably fit them on here and have it look effective. So we'll do something like this. Okay, there's my phone layout. I can run that as well. It's the same underlying data. I've just created a layout for the phones, which means when a phone calls in, they'll get this layout. When a tablet or a laptop or a workstation or a big screen TV in a boardroom calls in, they'll get the other layout. And so the experience for the user is premium. And this is any device. Once, if I were to publish this, I don't care if it's Android, iOS, Windows Phone, browser-based devices, it renders beautifully on each of them.
Dean, what happens if I don't define a phone layout, but I try to access it from a phone?
It will just try its best to scale to the environment. So it's okay, but if you want premium experience, you just quickly create different layouts and it works beautifully. Okay, so this is all sort of sample stuff that we're sort of playing with here. So let me create a real dashboard, connect to real data, and publish it. All right, so again, we'll activate this. We'll start from the fresh screen. However, this time, I'm going to go to my data view first. I'm going to import some data. So again, very simple to use. I click on the Add Data button. I have a couple of options. Do I want local Excel, or do I want DataZen server for the enterprise data sources? So I click on here. I have a couple of server connections that I've made, so I'll select this one. And now I'm given hubs. Just a quick second on hubs. DataZen uses something called a DataZen hub to help you logically organize your data. They could be organizational units, projects, customers, because each hub has can have its own brand, its own data, its own security, its own dashboards. So if you have a multi-customer environment, you can have this for each customer separately, and they'll feel like it's their own experience when they log into their hub. So here, I'll select this corporate overview hub. You can see some other data sets that I have organized here by type. I select this one, and here are my data sets that someone's created. I'll show you later how you create these, but right now, these are my inventory of data sets that I can use for my dashboard. I could select any number, but I'll select this one here because I know the dashboard I want to build, and I'll import it. This is real data. This came from a SQL Server database. Someone wrote the query, generated this data set. It was available to me to use.
So both the SQL Server and Data Science Server are running on-prem in this case.
On-prem in this case. That's correct. Okay, so let me build a real dashboard that we'll connect to. So I'll build this selector list, which will filter the data. I will build this number with a delta, and let's throw a map in there as well. Except this map, the data was for the world, so I will select world countries. Where is that one? Okay, so this is my layout, simple layout, but will give us the story. I'll go back to my data. And now, of course, you see, in addition to the real data, the simulated data I mentioned before. It always builds simulated data, so it gives you an idea of, you can always run the dashboard and see a particular architecture which will work for it. But in this case, we have real data. So let's connect. I click on the selector, and I simply point it. If you notice the very easy way, I'll point it to the real data. I will say I want to filter by the sector name. I want the labels in there to be also the sector name. And I can just verify these and say, no, don't filter simulated data. Filter real data with that sector name. Go to my number. Again, very similar, very simple. Point it to real data. Yes, show the amount. And by the way, make sure that it's filtered by the selection list and make sure you aggregate via sum. And now for the comparison value, point it to real data, but this time compare it to the previous amount and also ensure it's being filtered. And lastly, going to my map, point it to real data, show me by country name, show the amount, and make sure that the country is also filtered and aggregated properly. I'm done. That's a real dashboard from SQL Server data. That I can filter. So when I publish this, if I had 1,000 people that were authorized out in the field to do this, they would get it immediately. You don't have to worry what the platform is, what their device is. They get it. So let me see. We had some trouble. Let's see everything works okay. So publish. I'll publish it to the dev. Publish. Okay, that was it. It's been published to Data Zen Server, working very, very simply. If I, as I said, anybody with any platform can get this particular dashboard. If I flip through it, there it is. I put it in dev, and there it is there. So it's already been, it's saved, it's labeled. People can access it very simply.
Cool.
So that was sort of the sexy part of the demo, sort of the designer, where we do the layouts. So now I will go into the server side and get a little bit more on the nuts and bolts of things.
Cool.
All right. So the server...
Could we also look at it in the browser?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So maybe I can show you that even now. I'll just log in. This is the viewer for the browser. So we'll just log in. There are the same dashboards in the viewer. There's dev, there's my dashboard there. So if you have a browser, you can access this as well on any device.
Okay. Could you try opening it? And then try
You're asking for a lot. You're asking for a lot.
And yeah.
There it is.
Okay, it works.
It works in the browser, if you didn't trust me.
Cool.
Okay. It wasn't scripted, but it's all right. So we'll log into the control panel. The control panel is it's a web-based control panel which allows you to administer the Data Zen server. I've logged in with our now ex-CEO after the acquisition, his account. So if I were to log in with the admin account, I would get a bunch of other things for admin management of backups and all sorts of things. But today I'm just going to focus on somebody else who wouldn't be doing admin for the back end. So the important thing to focus on is the data source tab. I'm already in the corporate overview hub where I selected my earlier data set. So if I click on the data source, you will notice the same folders that I had in my earlier when I selected the data set. And if I go to the SQL one, you should see the ones that I had available to select. So this is where people created these data sets. This is on the server. So let me just edit the one that I selected to give you an idea of how simple and yet powerful it is to create these data sets. So somebody, whether it's a power user or a data architect or somebody in your BI team, created this. They gave it a name. They set the refresh frequency because the user never worries about data. You set the refresh frequency at some interval, and it always updates the data on DataZen server. So the user always gets refresh data based on what you've put here. It's totally disconnected from them. They don't have to worry about it. We also, if you notice in that list, have real-time queries. So in some cases, you may want you want the dashboard to query the data source directly every time you make a change on the dashboard, as opposed to a cached data set. That's capable as well, if you have massive data sets and you don't want to bring them in. Although I should mention that we really have a great story there. DataZen supports up to 100,000 records offline, which I think is not really met by any other competitor. So you can actually have very large data sets that function efficiently in cached modes.
So you are in an airplane where you don't have any internet connectivity, not even connecting to DataZen server.
Absolutely.
The app can still continue to work.
Absolutely. 100,000 records, so you can do some pretty effective analysis with that. A couple other things there. Of course, you can decide if it allows for caching or not. You can also tick this box here, which means personalize the query. So the user ID, if I go in here, if you notice there, the user ID, let's see if it stays. Okay.
You need a mouse. Okay.
I need a mouse. Anyways, the user ID, you can see it there. The user ID automatically gets inserted in the query. So it gives you an extra level of protection because you only bring back the data for that user and nobody else. And then, of course, you have your simple SQL query for this data set. So this same procedure is used for whatever data set you connect to. If this was a cube, I would earlier have made a data connection to the cube, and then I will have followed the same steps, but at the bottom that would be an MDX or a DAX query or whatever. And the same data set gets built. And the process is the same. You build this two-dimensional data set, and it becomes available, if you will, as an inventory of data sets for your dashboard. And you can build a dashboard from any number of Excel, SharePoint lists, SQL data. Any number can come in and build one dashboard.
Okay, excellent.
That was sort of the original. Do we have a little more time? Anything else you want me to show them, May? I mean, you can see things like the KPI tiles I can show you are created on the server. So KPI tiles are not created on the designer in the client. They're created on the server, and you can see here how effective they can be as well. So this is the one that I went into, total sales, and you can see how quickly you can do KPI tiles. Give it a name, give it what it's showing, and then you can choose for the value goal either to set manually. In some cases, you might have data not in the system and someone's going to enter it, or you can select execute query, and then same procedure basically as before. So if you have data available, you can have these KPI tiles on executive phones in minutes or hours, and they can be meaningful BI content.
Excellent.
That's all I had.
Cool. Thanks, Dean. Give him a round of applause.
It's okay.
Okay. Quick summary of the demo, right? So you have beautiful, beautiful visualizations, a KPI repository as well as a dashboard repository. You create once within minutes using a touch-optimized device. You can publish it to any platform. You publish it by default to all platforms. It is native app for each one of the platforms so that it takes advantage of the native platform capabilities. You can also do a custom branding so that the app looks like your own app. For example, many corporations, they want to apply their branding on it. And it perfectly scales to any form factor. If you define the major layout, it automatically does it best to fit to a tablet and phone. But you also have full control to define an optimized layout. And you can also collaborate. It's not just looking at and interacting. You can ask questions. Other people can respond to it. So it provides the continuous loop. And everything is at no extra cost for SQL Server Enterprise Edition customers with software assurance. So I'm super excited to see how this is going to take off, at least like we are seeing in the Twitter. Everyone is talking about DataZen, so I'm going to recommend you to go try it out yourself. Okay, now we are going to switch gears a little bit to talk about SSRS. I'm sure like everyone has some questions around what is going on with SQL Server reporting services, when are we going to get new capabilities. First, I want to assure that the team is super committed in improving SQL Server reporting services, and you would see this evident, visible in SQL Server 2016, and we are going to continue to iterate and then make it more and more better. So what does modern report means, right? First of all, in the build conference with the Azure ML team, there was a viral photo type application where anybody can upload their photo and look at their age. How many of you tried it? Yep, few of you. I think my wife and daughter, they were uploading their photos to see whose age is less, kind of a thing. And I was wondering at the time, maybe I should upload a SSRS report and then see what age the tool is going to say. But luckily, it only recognizes faces, not reports. But I'm sure like if it supports, it would say, guess what, right? We haven't updated the look and feel for quite some time. And in this release, you are going to see big improvements. So number one thing, with the consumerization of IT exploding and business users bringing their own devices, we can no longer say the reports only work on PCs and only on this particular device with this setting, right? So to reach out to a broader user, we need to support all modern browsers in both desktops as well as tablets. And that is job number one for us in our modernization journey. And you would see some significant improvement in this front in 2016. Second is parameter panel. Like when talking to customers, the feedback that we are getting is the parameter panel is as important as the report canvas itself. Because oftentimes, users' first interaction with the report is with the parameter itself. And today, we provide very little control to the report developer in terms of laying out the control. The only thing, if I'm right, the only thing that we allow is reordering the parameter. That also only lucky ones who discover that capability exists. Because if you right-click in some platform, you may not even figure it out, right? So in 2016, what we are going to provide is a very flexible parameter panel layout infrastructure. Like people who are used to web development, creating a table-like experience, you can define the rows and columns and position your parameter the way you want. You can see that in 2016. And you can also position the parameter either at the top, bottom, right, left, like all those like layout-related things you would see in 2016. The third is the modern theme. I already talked about the look and feel of SSRS, right? So it is not the best-looking report in the blog. But if you look at the consumer web, in the last few years, it evolved big time. Like people adopted modern design principles like flatter navigation, minimalistic Chrome, unique typography, responsive rendering, and so on. So it is time for SSRS to catch up and lead in some ways, right? So what we are going to provide in 2016 is, okay, before I go there, right, even though we think the default reports may not be the best looking, to our surprise, we see in the web some creative developers have very beautiful reports, and they blogged about the pain they went through in terms of creating the report. So it is doable today, but it's only available for a mighty few. It is not for everyone. So in 2016, we want to make it like super simple. So we are going to provide default set of modern themes that a BI developer, report developer can apply at the time of creating the report so that it looks modern. For the existing reports, people could choose to continue to render the same way because like people have spent time in terms of defining a pixel perfect rendering, and we don't want to go change that behavior. So it would be an opt-in approach by the report developer to go uptake those new modern themes. And the last one is the new visualization types. The volume of data is also growing up exponentially, right? So the standard set of charts are no longer meaningful to display a large volume of data. For example, if you have a hierarchical data, displaying it as a pie chart or as a bar chart may not convey the meaning to the end user. You really need a tree map or a sunburst, like those type of new class of visualizations. 2016, we are going to add a few more new chart types. And it is not just adding new charts, we are going to integrate other charting libraries into the product. So going forward, adding more and more new visuals would become easier and easier, right? Overall, by 2016, SQL 2016, SSRS is going to get a major facelift, and this is just the beginning. Any questions so far before I go further? Okay. Yep.
Are you going to have it so that you can easily face that to the internet and you want the ADFS type approach?
So in terms of security, in terms of exposing SQL Server reporting services, we are not currently working on anything specific, but I would like to hear the feedback and then see what we can do better. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so reporting services does support custom authentication, so we should be able to hook into the Azure Active Directory authentication. Yeah, definitely I would like to take it offline and then go in detail. So it should be doable. We'll Yep. Yeah, the question is the current report builder, are we improving anything on it, right? So there's a shared code base between the current report builder and the Visual Studio based bits development tools. So in terms of parameter layout, inserting new chart types, all those capabilities are going to light up in both platforms. But report builder, we are thinking more like a report authoring environment. It is not meant for self-service type tools like Power BI, the Power BI Designer and Power View, like those are probably best suited for self-service content creation. But for the common capabilities are going to be up in the report builder as well. Any other questions? Yeah.
What about integration with SharePoint? Is that being maintained?
Integration with SharePoint is being maintained for reporting services. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, go ahead. Yours. Yep. Could you please come to the mic? Like I have a hard time hearing it. Yeah.
So there's three reporting tools now, seems. Are you going to talk about when to use which tool? Because to me, reporting services doesn't seem relevant now, given that the data Zen stuff looks much better. But
so in terms of like different installation mode for reporting services, is that what you're asking? SharePoint integrated mode with native reporting services?
No, just the use case for each tool now, because there seems to be quite a lot of overlap.
Yeah, so use
Power
case for
BI, data Zen, and reporting services.
Yeah, right. So the reporting services, like we are mainly targeting for what we call the operational reporting, like where you IT centralized developers define the content for the entire company to consume. It's a standardized type of report. It is meant for pixel perfect rendering. The data Zen is mostly a dashboard and ad hoc analytical type reporting, like it is more of a consumer business user based, not necessarily for operational reporting. Yeah, we would definitely work on clarifying the positioning of the different tool sets. Yep. Last question, and then I'll come back. Yeah.
You mentioned on browsers, are you look at like HTML5 and CSS3, is that going to be part of this?
Yeah, so we are still, yeah, I think the question is like for modern browsers, like is reporting services is going to adopt the HTML5 and CSS aspect of the things. So we are still evaluating. The thing is like we don't need to go to HTML5 just for the sake of going. Our primary goal is to provide a good experience in all the modern browsers, and we do think the current stack does it, and there are definitely some gaps which we are trying to address, and we are trying to see whether HTML5 is the right tool for it, or can we continue with the existing stack, right? HTML5 makes sense in terms of you are going to draw an interactive chart in the client itself. Reporting services uses server-side rendering, so HTML5 by itself does not add much value. Definitely, there are few use cases where it might make sense, and we are looking into it. Yeah. Yeah, like CSS-like styling is definitely one area where we are looking at for reporting services, so that you don't need to go modify each report. You can define your style in a central place for your corporation, and you could easily apply. Is one area. Okay, so let's continue, and then we'll come back to more Q&A at the end of this session. Okay, the second area is hybrid BI. You might be hearing a lot about cloud BI lately and wondering whether there is something in it for you. We do understand for some companies, cloud BI may not be a viable option due to security, compliance, company policy type thing. But we think like increasingly more companies are going to adopt both on-premise as well as cloud, mainly because the business units, they are looking for some agile BI platform. Like they want to go from 0 to top speed with no friction. And they don't have like long wait times. They don't want to wait for 6 months to get the budget, big budget, procure hardware, hire developers to go get some insight. Like they want to go immediately within minutes. And the cloud provides an attractive platform for those use cases. But as I said, right, the cloud BI would only be successful if they can leverage all the existing investments that were made over the decades in the corporate BI. And our job is to bridge these two things so that people can adopt the BI on their own terms. Like if you want to stay in on-premise, they can continue to do. They want to do cloud, they can do it. And if they want a mix of both, it is seamless. If you look at today in Power BI preview, we have a AS connector, which you could use to connect to the on-prem AS tabular models. People love it because you are not moving the entire data to the cloud. The data still resides within the company's premise. It is only the query that gets sent to the server, and the security model is still applied. So people love that concept. So we need to finish up, polish the AS connector, and make it ready for the general availability. And after that, we would also add multi-dimensional capability into the AS connector. So with that, you can connect to your corporate data from Power BI. And hybrid BI is not just about connecting the data. It also means the reports, right? We are also going to add support in SQL 2016, the ability for anyone who is a Power BI user can pin a report element from an on-prem report into a Power BI dashboard. And then the administrator can decide whether that is something that the company want to entertain, and if they don't want, they can turn it off. But if they did enable it, the users can easily sign up to Power BI, and they can have one single pane of glass to manage all their content. So these two are hybrid BI specific investments for SQL 2016, and it is a continuous improvement. We would deliver it more and more in the cloud cadence in this area. The third is the enhanced analysis. I talked a little bit about reporting services. Now we are going to cover the improvements in the analysis services space. First, tabular. In 2016, we are going to improve the modeling capabilities of tabular big time, so that the BI Pro can put all the semantics in the model itself. So when the end user consumes it, creates visualizations, they get a seamless experience. Things like many-to-many relationship. For example, you have employees and projects. One employee might work on multiple projects, and one project could have multiple employees. Today, it is very hard to define that kind of relationship in the tabular model. So if you want to slice and dice by project or employee, today you have to decide and pick one. Whereas in 2016, it makes it like super simple. You can define this in the model, and the end user are the one who decide how they want to slice and dice and cross filter. Okay? Thank you. The same thing for bidirectional cross filtering, right? In the past, like when OLAP and the cube concept came into picture, people were very religious about defining what is a dimension table, what is a fact table, so that they can slice and dice the fact table by the dimensions. So the filtering is always one way, right? But the advent of tabular model, people are just pulling denormalized tables. They don't really think of fact table and dimension table and so on, right? So what it makes is, like, for example, you have product table, you have a sales table where you have the sales date and the product. You want to look at, when you select product, you want to look at the dates on which those product was sold. But when you select this date, you also want to look at the product category that are sold, right? You want the filtering happen on both ways. That was not possible in the tabular model before. With 2016, we are enabling these capabilities. If you're using Power, again, one person is trying to clap, love it. If you use the Power BI Designer preview today, you could explore these capabilities. Like, that is another benefit of our cloud delivery. We are trying out these capabilities in the cloud product first, get feedback, make the capabilities mature enough so that we can put it in the box and deliver it to large customers. Second is time intelligence. Like today, when you have a date column in your tabular model, the BI Pro's task is to go create a date table, populate it with the date range based on your data. You need to define the time dimension. Do you want to have quarters, years, months, however you want, establish the relationship between the date table and your fact table so that the end user can analyze their data in the time unit that they like, right? The sad part is it's not about the work. If the BI Pro didn't do it, the end users are the one who would be suffering it because they can't analyze the way they want. With 2016, we are making it automagic. Like whenever we see a date column, we automatically create the date table underneath the cover. We populate, we look at your data and then see the start range and the end range, and we create the date table, and we also provide default time dimensions. And the advantage of this approach is you get the default experience. At the same time, you also have the ability to go customize. You are not just constrained by what we provide, you could go enhance it further. So time intelligence, analyzing time-based data is going to be super easy in 2016. Cool. Yeah.
So given any thought given towards multiple calendars like a manufacturing, financial calendar, like if you are an organization, there's frequently several different calendars that are important.
Yeah. So yeah. So again, calendaring is a big topic on its own, right? So we are deeply thinking about how to provide custom calendar support. We haven't locked on the design yet, but it will be something that would come soon after this. The next one is like new DAX functions, like even simple things like you want to look at the percentile or a date difference between like two columns, or you want to calculate the product of values in a column, right? Or mean, like all these things today, you need to write complex formulas to achieve the result that you want. With 2016, we are adding number of DAX functions most commonly requested by users. So out of the box, you can easily use it and get insight without writing complex formulas. And performance is a big topic. The entire metadata stack of Tabular is revamped so that all the modeling related operations become super, super fast. So What it means is like you are no longer, let's say you are adding a new calculated column or a measure. Like it is not about going and reading an entire blob of all the metadata about the tabular model, parsing it, and then putting this new one, packaging it, and putting it back to the blob, right? Underneath the cover, everything is granularized. It is like rows in sys tables for the relational concepts, right? So inserting a new column is like inserting a new row in a sys table-like environment for us, so the operation completes very quickly. So not only the metadata operations, it also helps to improve the query performance. Also, like when you have the hybrid BI where the UI runs in the cloud and you have the on-prem server, we need to make sure the interaction that the user doesn't generate like number of small queries and the chattiness, and we need to provide a good experience. So we are also packaging like a powerful, performant DAX functions underneath the cover, so that based on the user interaction, we generate the right query to provide a better experience. So performance, you would see noticeable improvements in tabular. The last one is the parallel partition processing. Like this capability was available in the multidimensional space for a long time. As enterprises are adopting more and more tabular, we are bringing those enterprise readiness capabilities into tabular, and parallel partition processing is again the first step in this journey. So tabular model, you would see like number of big improvements which you have been waiting for quite some time, made available in 2016. So whenever I talk about tabular, the next question comes up is what happens to multidimensional, right? So we understand like multidimensional is a very mature product, widely adopted. So we are improving that stack purely based on customer feedback. So whatever the top customer asks, we are trying to address those. And Netezza as a data source has been a high demand ask for quite some time, and we are super happy that in 2016 we are able to deliver that. Again, performance improvements, performance and robustness improvements in multidimensional. So we looked at the targeted areas where the current multidimensional stack may not be performing. We identified a few areas like things like unnatural hierarchies. Like if you have a time hierarchy, year, month, for example, month January, you have one set of values which applies across every year, like 2014 and 2015. It is very hard. You need to track the hierarchy to understand the unique value. Like that is what we call the unnatural hierarchies. Generally, like those type of operations were not performant in multidimensional, and we improved that query experience so that you get performant experience this time. The similar concepts apply to a few other areas, like distinct count is another area. There are a couple of more. So wherever we heard feedback from customer in terms of performance, reliability, feature requests, we are addressing them in the multidimensional stack. Last one is DBCC support. Like people who are familiar with the relational world of SQL Server, they like the DBCC type command consoles where you can use command lines to do consistency check, and we are providing those type of capabilities for multidimensional. For example, if your index, whether it is corrupted, whether you need to fix it, there's a command line for those types of operations. Again, purely based on customer feedback. If you have any more asks, at the end of the presentation, I will provide a link to put your suggestions. We would like to hear from you as well. Next is the self-service BI. I think someone already asked about the SharePoint integration. SharePoint is coming up with a big release along the timeline of SQL 2016. So we did significant amount of work to make sure SQL 2016 works well with SharePoint vNext. We are happy that the work is behind us now. So support for SharePoint vNext is a big thing. We did this work so that like you can choose to upgrade the stack, either SharePoint or SQL Server at the same time together or independently. So SQL Server 2016 would also support SharePoint 2013. So it is not that you are forced to go to 2016, the next version of SharePoint, but if you choose to, we are there for you. Edit mode of Power Pivot. Like today, when you have an Excel workbook with the Power Pivot model in it, you can upload it to the server, view it in the browser, but you cannot edit the workbook, even if you want to make like minor changes in the Excel cell, because the Power Pivot model is kind of an unsupported feature in the browser. In the vNext of SharePoint, the Office team addressed this issue, so you can edit Excel workbook in the browser even when it contains the Power Pivot model. And of course, support for the vNext of Excel. The same DAX functions that I talked about earlier, those are also available in Office vNext. So if you created an Excel workbook with those functions, and if you want to upload it to SharePoint and make those functions work, then you can use SQL Server 2016 as underneath it. So this is kind of our, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, the current Excel works with SharePoint 2013 itself. The next version of Office, which is in preview currently, I think it is announced in the event, it supports the newer DAX functions that I mentioned. There are, I think, 15 or 20 functions. You could consume it. So if you don't consume those new DAX functions, if you only created the regular one, you can upload it to any version of SharePoint, and then it would work. For the newer functions, you would need the SQL 2016 for it to work, because the tabular engine in 2016 is the one that understands these functions. Okay? And the last category here is the rich tools. The number one complaint that we hear from users is it is very hard to find the developer tools for BI. Because like there are at least like two variants. So you have the Visual Studio developer tools, which is meant for the relational aspect of SQL Server development, and then the developer tools for business intelligence, which is for reporting analysis services improvements. So people often download the other version and then try to find the project type, and only to their frustration, then they need to go back and download, right? So 2016, we are super happy that we are merging these two things into one project type. So you will have only one Visual Studio developer tools, which contains both relational as well as BI tools together. And yeah, go ahead. And even more important thing, right? So it is no longer this 2 gig file that you need to download, right? It's a lightweight installer. So when you have Visual Studio already there, it would be a very simple install which just adds on those project types. And the other thing is, like, we would support, I think this is another question, like Visual Studio release cycle is different from SQL Server. So you would always look for when the next version of toolset is going to be available. So we are separating the setup from the SQL Server, so we can iterate the tool setup faster and go hand in hand with the Visual Studio. And at the time of 2016 release, we would start supporting the 2015 Visual Studio, so you would get the new shell experience. We are also revamping the scripting stack for tabular. Today, even though you create the tabular model, when you script it, it converts it to the multi-dimensional constructs, and then when you deploy it, it reverse engineers and then creates the tabular model. So if you open it up in Notepad, it will be very hard to understand what you actually created, right? So we are adding the new scripting language for tabular models, which uses the native object model of tabular. So it will be very easy for any BI pro to open it up, understand it, modify it, and then deploy. So not only the developer tools, even the management tools are getting better. The SSMS management tools, X-Event is kind of the common interface which all the server tools uses, including SQL Server. Like if you write X-Event-based traces or your debugging information, there are tool sets that are already available which you could use to visualize correlate and monitor the activities that are going on the server, and we are bringing that concept into SQL Server BI in 2016. So with this, this is again recap of the 6 investment areas: mobile BI, you saw the data Zen, modern reports. Again, that should address people's concerns about SSRS, what is coming up. So we are revving up the engine big time. Hybrid BI, mainly an enabler for people to adopt cloud BI and leverage the existing assets. Enhanced analysis, both tabular model as well as multidimensional are getting improvements in this release. Tabular modeling concepts are revving up big time. Self-service BI, we are starting to support the next version of SharePoint for you to easily upgrade. Rich tools, we are unifying the tool sets between the SQL Server products and making it lightweight and providing management aspect of it. That is kind of the summary for 2016. So the call to action before I open up for Q&A is start using DataZen mobile apps. If you have Enterprise Edition and Software Assurance, it is free. You can go download the server from the Microsoft website for a SQL Server Enterprise Edition page, or you can go to any one of the app stores and download the client. You can try out the publishing. There's a SQL 2016 CTP is going to come up. You should try out and provide your feedback. And the last one is the one that I want you to focus on. That is the URL for our user voice. Any one of you can go to that link, aka.ms/SQL-BI user voice. Easy to remember. Go look at the items that other people have suggested and vote. And if you don't see what you want, go ahead and add those items. I am actively monitoring those items, and our product direction planning is using those tools actively. With that, Q&A. Thank you. If you can line up for the mic, I think others also can hear the question, but go ahead. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So I think our starting, the question is when do I use tabular model versus multidimensional model? There is a white paper that we created which is available. If you want a detailed response, you can go there. But if you want a quick answer, if you're starting a new project, I would say start with the tabular model because it has the in-memory performance characteristics. And if the capabilities that are there or in the immediate roadmap is not meeting, then go use multidimensional. Okay. Yep.
So this data Zen supported with SharePoint?
Yeah, data Zen is supported with SharePoint. Yeah, so you can connect to SharePoint list, get the content.
Well,
you
not
can
that way.
visuals.
It's similar to is it integrated with SharePoint? So if I log into my SharePoint environment, I'm also logged into data Zen reports and consume it that way.
Yeah. So data Zen, all the server tools uses Active Directory. So if you have Active Directory account, then it is the same account that you use. So you don't need any special account created just for data Zen.
And other thing, data Zen also seems to be very similar product to Power, self-service BI, Power Pivot kind of tools. So are they competitors or so when should we use what?
So data Zen is the way you think of it is the mobile BI dashboarding tool. If your users are looking for mobile solutions for on-premise installations, then data Zen is the tool. It is not a visual data exploration tool.
What is that, visual data?
Right. For example, if you are a power user, you have large amount of data, you don't know what you are looking for, you just want to explore the data to find out some insights around it. For that needs, you need querying tools, you need some exploration tools and visualization tools. DataZen is not meant for that, right? DataZen is like you know what data that you want to display. You have the dashboard that you have in mind. It is very quick to create and make it operationalize easily.
Does it not support large data sets? Like
It does support large data sets. Yeah, you can connect real time to any data.
But seems like apart from the Q&A
Yeah.
piece of the Power BI, there isn't any like huge difference between the Power BI stack
Yeah.
and the
Yeah,
DataZen.
the Power BI stack, I'm thinking of more of a cloud service. Like
Yeah.
if your organization had cloud BI needs, then Power BI is the place to go. If you have on-premise requirements where your data cannot move to cloud, you do not want to consider a cloud-based solutions, then DataZen serves similar needs.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is regarding SSRS report.
Yeah.
How many sub-report is recommended? Recently, by adding 10 sub-report, one of our report took 10 minutes to execute, 1,000 sub-pages, and we reduced to 7 sub-reports.
Okay. So the question is how many sub-reports that you can embed? Like is it kind of nested or you are looking embedding 10 sub-reports in one report?
One report.
Okay. I don't have the limit top of my
Okay.
hand. I can follow it up. If you give me your card,
Okay.
then I can get the
Okay.
answer for you.
Hi. Can DataZen be integrated in custom.NET application? And is the report viewer, will report viewer be updated as well with a new version?
So the first question is about DataZen or for report?
For DataZen, can be integrated, in general, integration of custom.NET applications.
Yeah, I think DataZen, it has a browser-based rendering. So any tool that supports iframe-based integration, you could use it with DataZen. The report viewer control is also getting updated for the modern themes, parameter support, newer browser supports. Those are being supported as well.
The Netezza data source you mentioned about being available in multidimensional, will that also be available in tabular?
Probably, it is already, it should be there, yeah. For
Netezza,
tabular, we are thinking you can use any tools like Power Query, Excel, for tabular you are pulling data through some other tools like Excel or Power Query, which already supports wide range of data sources.
yeah, it doesn't have a native Netezza. It has a generic OLEDB driver.
It
And
has a-
we
it has
have
a
some
generic-
issues with that. So there won't be a dedicated Netezza.
I
data
need to
source?
check back. I think my understanding is it would show up in both places.
Both, okay.
Yeah, but I'm not 100% sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, is there any plans to bring SQL reporting services integration to SharePoint Online? Or is that still off the table?
I think the question is are we going to support SQL Server reporting services in the cloud?
Right.
So we did have a Azure-based reporting services solution earlier this year, which we deprecated.
Okay.
So we don't have plan in terms of standing up a service on its own. Definitely in the long term, we would consider enabling RDL support in the Power BI service.
So we could do more
more-
organizational level development in Power BI.
Yeah.
Move that direction.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I have two questions related to SharePoint integration with SSRS. We've run into where we have a user in SharePoint and that user creates a report and
Okay.
they create subscriptions, and then if we delete that user from SharePoint, it breaks the report and the subscriptions.
Okay.
Do you know if that's been dealt with in 2016?
So we had a few hot fixes for subscription. I'm not sure whether this is one of the area or not, but we did have few subscription-related improvements in terms of I think OLAP data sources. So your question is a user-created subscription, and when the user is removed, it affects other user subscriptions. Is that right?
Yeah, it breaks the subscription that user created, and it breaks the report, because even if you try to run the report, you get an error that it
Okay.
can't find the user, or user doesn't exist.
Okay. I don't have. I need to check back on that. Yeah.
Okay. And then my second question is, when the subscription is created, it creates a SQL Server agent job. We've had need to use that SQL Server agent job to run an SSIS package. So basically, we kind of hijack the subscription SQL Server agent job. And what we've run into is when one of the services are restarted, it overwrites that job and reverts it back to the SharePoint command.
Okay.
Do you know if that's been?
Yeah, I'm not
No.
sure as well. So again, if you can give me your card with those two questions, I will definitely follow it up. Right? Yeah.
Hi, great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I was wondering, is Datazen Publisher works on Windows 7?
So today it only works on Windows 8 because it's a store app. We are looking into making that available for other versions of Windows as well.
Do you think it will be sometime this year, or because our company wants to use that, but they don't want to like purchase a lot of like Windows 8 or migrate to Windows 8 just for one product?
Yeah. I can't commit to a timeline, but definitely it is in our plan. Yeah.
And is there a way to get the presentation?
I think it should already be available in the Yammer
okay.
group for Ignite. I think it is already posted yesterday.
Okay, thank you.
And if you can't find it, you can email me, or we would be in the expo booth. You can come and get hold of one of us. Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Hi, I was wondering with the new tax functions and the many-to-many relationships in the...
sorry, could you...
The new tax functions and the many-to-many relationships for the tabular server, will that also be available for Power Pivot?
Yeah, it will also be available. The new DAX functions are available in the newer version of Excel, but I think the many-to-many relationship is not yet enabled in the next of Excel. It would come a little later.
Okay,
right.
Thank you.
But it is available in the tabular in 2016. Yeah.
The server. The tabular server 2016 then.
Yeah, so all the capabilities that I mentioned are available in the server. Yeah. In the Power Pivot model inside Excel desktop, only the DAX functions are available, the new DAX functions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm curious what's going on with performance point services in the future.
Performance point services, I am not familiar whether like there's part of the Office group, so somebody from the Office team might be a better person to answer it. So if you if you go to their expo booth, they might be able to help.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have an answer.
Yeah, we use that as the front end for our BI, but
yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, regarding DataZen and SharePoint integration, I have read about this iframe integration that supports Windows authentication. Any plans to support custom authentication like SAML, for example?
I need to follow it up.
Should I ask him?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Dean might be a better person, right?
SSRS.
Yep.
Overlaying two controls in the web browser version, the view. Can you do that now in the 2016? So if you take an image and you want to put text over top of the image, today if you render that in the viewer, it pushes, right? The image goes down, the text goes up.
Okay.
You print it, it looks fine, but the online viewer doesn't work.
Sure.
Is that something that you can do in 2016?
Yeah. So actually, if you go to SQL BI user voice, we specifically created a category for SSRS rendering issues. So we are collecting all the browser rendering issues that we have today, and we are planning to address them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. If you could post it, it would be super helpful.
Okay. I'll go.
Okay.
You didn't say anything about SSIS. Anything on the roadmap for that?
Yeah. So again, I think there's a separate session for SSIS.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the session ID, but there's a dedicated session for SSIS for SQL 2016. I believe it is tomorrow.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right. And is anyone working on parity between products? Because the connectors you have for one product doesn't exist in another product, and it makes it difficult to be able to move between solutions when you find that you need to move on to something else. Like Power BI has a different set of connectors than Power Query. Power Query is different than Power Pivot. Yeah. Power Pivot is different than SSIS. Yep. And is there someone working on making sure that each product line has the same exact connectors?
Yeah. Yep. I think the answer is yes. It's a great question. I think we also asked that question quite a lot internally. I think our strategy going forward is like Power Query is kind of the data connectivity tool for all the products. So starting from Excel, SSRS, analysis services, SSIS, all of them, even Power BI today internally uses Power Query. So all the data sources that you see in Power BI would eventually be available in Power Query, and through the Power Query, it will also be it will show up in all
of
of
the dashboard designer, Power BI dashboard. You have too many tools. That's the problem. There's got to be you got to cull it somewhere. You got to say, there's just too many things to choose, and they don't
Sure.
work the same. So are you going to get rid of Power Query in Excel and use the dashboard designer, or is that a separate tool?
So the Power Query in Excel is natively integrated in Excel itself in the vNext. So Power Query is no longer a separate add-in. So it is becoming part of Excel itself.
Okay.
The same way Power Query is also becoming part of the Power BI solutions natively. If you look at the Power BI designer or the Power BI service. So those two are already happening. We don't see the full result of it because it is happening in stages, but you can see that happening already. For SSRS, SSIS is the next wave of product where we would be integrating the Power Query. So at the end of the day, you should see one set of data connectors which work and behave the same way across all those products.
All right. And lastly, when's the date of release? When can I buy Power BI?
Power BI, I don't think we are announcing the date here.
I was hoping you would, because that's why I came here. No.
Yeah, I think Kamal mentioned in the
There's
overview
no product
session.
I can buy. I can't buy a product. I mean, that's the problem. I can't buy a product. The previous version was deprecated. The new one's in preview. I can't go to my boss and say, buy this.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think the answer that I'm supposed to say is the summer of this year.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank
so
you.
it's not further away, but yeah, summer.
You mentioned SSRS support for different browsers. What about support for the Edge, for the new browser, Microsoft browser?
Yeah.
And you're saying special coming there?
Our plan is to support the new Microsoft Edge browser.
Mm-hmm.
We are still working out the details. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. The initial thinking is like the same way like the Chrome, Safari, and Firefox, like where we have the basic interactivity.
Right.
Of SSRS, we should be able to start supporting the newer browser right away. Anything more that we can do, we are investigating at this point.
Okay, so no advanced support for Edge, no advanced features?
Again, we are looking at it. We are just starting that journey. So,
yeah.
But before 2016, we would have an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I have an additional question regarding the Power BI designer. So many power words.
Yeah.
Right now you have that designer preview, what the other guy just said, and you only can publish those dashboards into Office 365. And then for the SharePoint 2013 on-premise side, you have those Excel add-ins, and then you can add Power View reports in Excel, and you can use the, how's the names again, the deprecated rendering engine, similar to Flash.
Silverlight, yeah.
Silverlight, thank you.
Yeah.
Editor to create Power View reports in the Power View gallery in SharePoint 2013. So there are a lot of different entry points.
Yeah.
So how will this develop in the future?
So maybe I would ask the question a little differently, right? Like, what is the scenario that you are trying to address?
Okay, maybe I can formulate concrete questions. So
Sure.
first of all,
yeah, it's a hard question. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Is it possible in the future to use the Power BI designer to publish dashboards to the on-premise SharePoint server, or will it be only related to Office 365?
Yeah. So currently the Power BI designer is positioned as a companion app to the Power BI for the cloud, and for the on-prem, because like people use it mainly for report creation purposes. For on-prem, we have existing tools that, like as you said, like Power View integrated in Excel as well as SSRS. So we are evaluating whether there's a need for a Power BI designer for on-prem or not. We don't have, we haven't decided yet on that.
Okay, there is a need.
There's a need, sure.
Because we have the problem that, especially for those touch BI data, a lot of customers we have, they have the problem. They would like to use Power BI, but they see, okay, we don't want to expose our data to the cloud, so that's their problem.
Okay.
So that would be very great if this will be available in 2016. You can decide whether you would like to publish your dashboard in the cloud or if you want to publish it on SharePoint 2016 on premise.
Okay, so I think we have to run out. So let me just address this question, right? So your ask is not necessarily uploaded to SharePoint. What you are looking for is an on-premise dashboard designer tool.
Right, like publish it on-prem, the on-prem SharePoint 2016 farm, for example. Yeah, the dashboard. That would be awesome.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that feedback.
Yeah, thank you.
The second recommendation, because a lot of companies, they don't want to deal with the cloud because they want to deal with just the internal cloud. And they don't want to deal with anything data stored outside their company's data center. So, but there's a huge demand. Actually, it's an opportunity for Microsoft if you want to grab market share. There are lots of competing offering from other vendors. If you don't take it, somebody else will already taken, or you may miss big chunk of enterprise computing, market share.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. 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 I think. Yeah. Let me first get down here so that others can access it. Yeah.
Some problems.
Sure.
Can I get an answer from the booth?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be.